Welcome to Connect Canyons, a podcast sponsored by Canyon School District. This is a show about what we teach, how we teach, and why. We get up close and personal with some of the people who make our schools great. Students, teachers, principals, parents, and more. We meet national experts too. Learning is about making connections. So connect with us.
In today's digital age, AI isn't just a buzzword, it's a game changer. It's reshaping the way we approach so many aspects of life, from simple things like asking Siri directions to typing an email response or asking Alexa to play your favorite song. The list is endless, and the questions of how it can be used to help students learn and teachers instruct and educational institutions operate are boundless. But with great power comes great responsibility, and as AI brings its own set of challenges and ethical considerations, the district is now trying to figure out, what do we do with AI in the classroom? So today, we have brought in a couple of experts. Welcome to Connect Canyons, and as we explore AI, we are talking to Jonathan Stewart and Emma Moss. Can you both tell me what your positions are?
Sure. I'm a jack of all trades now. I work in the Instructional Supports Department. I support school climate, positive behavior, but I also am on the digital teaching and learning team. And as part of that, I've kind of started to dive into this whole AI world, and it's just fascinating to me. I could talk for hours. We won't, but just learning about how we can use it in education, how it can make things better, both for teachers, students, parents, families, in addition to things like being able to find a good recipe.
Yeah, and I'm Emma Moss. I am also part of the digital teaching and learning team in the Instructional Supports Department, and I am working with Jonathan as a team to help provide resources and things for both educators and families about AI. I think when I first heard about it and saw AI at work, I was like, this is incredible. And then my second thought, because as an educator, like, you're always looking for things, I'm like, this is going to change education. Like, that was my automatic. And so I think I started diving into it a lot more to kind of see, how can we do this and continue to be innovative as well as preparing our students?
I think there was some immediate fear when AI came into the classroom.
And I think that came up because, for a couple of reasons. Like, first, I really feel like when you think of AI, most of the public will think of like robots take over the world, right? That's what mainstream media has sort of presented AI as. But when you understand what it is and how it works, I think it becomes a lot less scary. As far as the cheating aspect, I mean, cheating's been around. I think anytime, having come from the classroom, you can cheat with a lot of things. But there are so many incredible things that AI can do to both enhance learning and support accessibility and provide opportunities for students as they move into careers, that even though, yes, is it possible? Maybe, but I think when we shift our mindset from just cheating to what is the possibilities for creating and collaborating and connecting, then AI becomes also a little less scary and more like in awe.
When ChatGPT came out less than a year ago, and all of a sudden something can write things for me. Talk to your math teachers in secondary schools, and they'll tell you, oh, we've been dealing with this for years. There's an app called PhotoMath that, ironically, my daughter was using last night to help her with her math homework that will solve the equation for you. So this is not a new phenomenon. I can think of many teachers that talk about spell check as a way of cheating on spelling and grammar, and it's also a vital accommodation for my daughter who's on an IEP for reading difficulties. So I think it's all about perspective, and again, acknowledging that AI has been part of us. I don't think anyone's mad that the bus drivers are using mapping technology to more efficiently run bus routes and also be safer and be able to communicate with voice-to-text applications rather so that they can focus on the road better. So again, I think it's all about perspective and understanding that there's a much broader set of skills and applications that we can use beyond just they can write a 3-page paper, which if they did, it would never pass, by the way.
I was reading an article from Neil deGrasse Tyson, and he said, people are beginning to freak out about AI, but AI beat us at chess and Go back in 1960s. It's just now that people are starting to worry, and he's like, AI has been part of our world for so many years now. We just didn't recognize it. And I think that's kind of, we need to frame the fact that we have been using it.
I would agree. I think, let's just take a second and define that, because I think when you understand how many facets it's in, it does take that away as well. What we're really talking about when you talk about AI right now is something called generative AI, or you might see it shortened as Gen AI. That generative AI is that ability to create, and I think some of that fear comes from the fact that previously we considered that such a uniquely human thing. But generative AI, though it's new, there's other types that have been around, and so we have both reactive AI and predictive AI. Reactive AI is just responding to a stimulus that it's been given. So, for example, like your child takes a test, and based on if they get the question right or not, it gives them a question to kind of assess where they are. That is a reactive AMI model. It's reacting to what the input is happening.
And that's the way we've been doing testing in the state for like our end of the year test for at least 7 or 8 years, if not longer.
So that's been around. Predictive AI is something that we're all familiar with. I personally like baking shows. So
Same.
On my Netflix, if there's a new episode, it'll be like, hey, come watch this show. And you're like, yeah, that's a baking show. That's a predictive AI. It's using data from you to determine and predict what you might be interested in. Or Spotify, if you have on that music player as it's going through, it's like, hey, you might like this suggested song or this suggested song. That is a predictive AI model. So even things down to, Jonathan mentioned it earlier, but routing on Google Maps, like absolutely using AI models when it makes the traffic adjustments, things that you might be familiar with in that way. And so we've had AI around, suggestions even like on your emails when it's like, would you like to write thanks at the end?
Or it finishes your sentence in a Google document, which I only like about half the time.
And that's the thing, is that these models have been learning. And so now we have something that they can create from. But really all they're doing is using a vast amount of data. And I say vast because I don't really know what other word to use, but just large amounts of data to train it so it can learn. And so sometimes you might hear that called a large language model or a neural network. The terms are synonymous, but it's just saying this is all of the data it's using to make a decision. And so really, computers saying, data, what does data say? Make a decision based on that, whether I'm reacting based on that data, I'm making a prediction based on that data, or I'm creating based on that data. And I think when you see it that way, that it's not a robot back there, that it's just data with a decision making, it's like, oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah, just happening in a lot of now new and creative ways. There's many different types of applications, and that's why I think we want to be proactive in saying that we don't want to be scared of it, but we want to understand how we can do it safely, how we can protect our data. Because when you contribute data in a AI program, they're using that to learn on you, and so making sure that we do it in a way that's safe, that privacy is respected, and that also that we can use it as a learning tool, because there are jobs that exist now that didn't exist, like AI term generators.
Well, it's an AI prompt engineer.
Prompt engineer, that's the one. Is literally a job, literally a job that makes more money than I do. Job right now that didn't exist 2 years ago.
Let me just talk about what that is.
Yeah.
So they're paying someone to craft the prompt to get the right information out of that large language model or neural networks, out of that data. Mm-hmm. So that person's job is to craft the right question.
And that is a skill. If you start using AI, just because it's there, doesn't, like if I just said, I want to write a 3-paragraph essay on Tolstoy's War and Peace, you'll get something. It may not be what you want, but the more details and information you can give it, the better the product you're going to get. And so, but this will be more and more part of the future that our students will be a part of. And so we want to prepare them for that world and maybe even possibly give them a leg up, in that innovation sphere that Canyons likes to be in.
Do you think part of the fear of this is how quickly it's coming? It does kind of feel like a tidal wave of technology has hit us and that we weren't quite prepared? Or is that just because of what the media is presenting it as? I mean, we are being hit with an actor's strike because of AI and other things that have kind of changed our world because of AI.
I can take that one. I think it caught people unawares. I mean, ChatGPT, there's been many articles looked at its adoption as a website application. I mean, it had 1 million users in like 5 days. Yeah, I mean, even Twitter, it took years for have 1 million people adopt their platform. So that speed, I think, yes, is part of it. But I think also just again, it's the robot thing. It's showing up in different news things. You have people that fear they're losing their jobs. Like we've been talking about verbal generation, but actually visual generation of photos and drawings, designs. There's a lot of graphic designers that are really nervous. I don't think they should be. There's lawsuits happening, and so there are people that are nervous that they see possibilities of how this could take something away from them. There's a internet news platform called CNET. It's pretty well known if you look up technology articles. Last year they admitted that for the past 3-4 years, a majority of their articles have been written by AI.
Oh. Wow.
There are real world effects that you're hearing more and more about. Having said that, there are many opportunities that are kind of hanging out there waiting for us. And one of the things that I would encourage your listeners to do is go in and play with it. Because I think as you do that, you're going to see it can be very helpful. Let me give you a very specific example in Canyons. There's a STEM grant that was out there that we applied for, I think it was last January, February, somewhere in that time frame. We used ChatGPT to help write portions of that grant. And one thing as you go through that process, you learn that you will give it the information, it will spit it out, and you're like, that's a good rough draft. It will never replace the human being, but it can give them a good start. I've seen anywhere from 30% to 70% of the kind of initial draft kind of end up in the final. But it added a lot of technical language that we need in the grant, and it helped us receive over $200,000 for the school district to help promote STEM. And ChatGPT/AI had a role in that. As much as there could be these other things going on, there's a lot of possibilities. I think it's just the speed thing is that people haven't had a chance to wrap their mind around that yet. But as they get a chance to do so, I think it will just open up their eyes. As long as we frame it in the context of how can we use this to make our lives better and improve our lives and not get caught in, well, is it cheating or not, or this or that.
How are we using it in the classrooms currently?
That's a really great question. I think this question starts out with what are we doing in Canyons in taking steps and then looking at that classroom. Right now, Canyon School District, we've developed a guidebook. So it's called Canyon School District's View of AI, and VIEW is an acronym. And so we've created that to provide a model for people to evaluate and sort of steps to go through. And so that stands for the V is value of understanding. We recognize that to utilize an AI in a positive way, you kind of have to understand a little bit about what it is, a general definition, how it works, and how you're interacting with it. Then moving to what Jonathan alluded to earlier, but implementing safely. Understanding how is the AI that you're using data, how is it using your data specifically. Mm-hmm. Then looking at the educational impacts, which is where we see it in the classroom, and finally looking at the W, which is looking at what changes are we going to see for the world and for your students? How does that impact the world that they go into in the future? As Canyon School District, we really want to provide our students opportunities to be college and career ready, and without AI right now, they won't be. And so as far as the classroom goes right now, we're working on implementing with educators as they're using it as an educator to help modify and differentiate instruction. We're still working through the process of getting it approved and making sure that it's safe for student interaction. And so we haven't quite got to that step. There's a lot of regulations that are in place to make sure that student data is kept safe. And I love that Canyons focuses on making sure that that's the case before we're putting these directly into the hands of students. And so as far as educators go right now, we're encouraging them to use it in the planning process, using it as a brainstorm partner, using it to look at how can educators provide differentiated learning opportunities. So you could say to it, I would like these specific things, and differentiating that instruction, giving them ideas, helping them plan in that way. We're also seeing it in ways to help them save time with feedback and some of the other, I don't want to say office tasks, but little tasks that educators do to help provide them more time. And we're seeing that in a variety of tools. We've mentioned ChatGPT a lot, and I think that's solely because we recognize that most people are familiar with that tool. But there are a lot of AI tools out there, and there are specific ones that are designed for educators. There's one called Magic School AI that we're looking into.
Fantastic tool for educators, by the way.
It will generate rubrics and lesson plans and things.
But it'll also help you write IEP goals for special education students, for example. So it's a very versatile tool.
And so looking at that versatility and how is this going to help educators save time in doing some of those other tasks so that really they can come back and spend more one-on-one time with the students. I think that as a district, like having that model, that we have that view of AI really helps us implement a variety of tools in a way that helps support educators' needs and their creativity in the process.
Emma pointed out there's lots of laws having to do with utilizing software and websites and things like that to protect student privacy and protect student data. And that's part of the vetting process we're doing right now. And one thing that I appreciate that Canyons is doing is we're not automatically saying no, we're just putting the protocols in place. There are actually many districts, this is another thing that's gotten a lot of attention in the news, that have taken the approach of we're going to ban it till we understand it. And that has not been Canyons' approach. We are working on the process to approving certain things. In talking with leadership from the superintendent on down, they're very supportive of keeping that innovation in. They just want to make sure that we have all our ducks in a row, that we're meeting all the state and federal laws and regulations so that we can protect our children in that space. So
we have new guides that we're putting in as far as on computers. We're allowing parents to decide how much they are blocking from their students. Mm-hmm. If we do that, and we have some students that have a wide access and others that don't, how do we make an even playing field for them as far as AI and education? Because they won't have as much access, or am I reading that wrong?
I don't think you're reading that wrong.
Let's talk about that. I'm a parent, and I totally understand wanting to make sure that what your child has access to is both age appropriate and appropriate for the learning tasks. I think that's super important. I think in this respect, as a parent, it comes back to that model. First, take time to understand what it is before you decide that your child can't have access to any of it. Make sure you can have fears, but make sure that you're going out and finding information that's credible and helping you understand if that fear is valid. For example, I am very afraid of ants. Are ants fairly harmless? Yes. But for me, it was because of a particular experience. And so oftentimes with ants, I have to be like, this is because of experience A, not because ants are horribly bad. And I think that can be applied to AI in some respects. You may have had experience as a listener with AI or have experience with the news outlet, especially when it first came out. And honestly, a lot of people were afraid of it. But I'd encourage you to take some time to explore it before you make a decision for your child. That being said, if that's the decision that works for you, then you should do that. But as far as making things on an equal playing field, I think it will come back to the educator in the classroom knowing the students and the access that they have and making decisions on how to best approach and incorporate this tool in a way that supports equitable access with those permissions or restrictions in place.
And I think it also goes back to understanding the nature of how you would use it. So, let's say a student wants to do a teacher wants to do a creative task. They want to put together a marketing campaign on a social issue like let's think of MAD, Mothers Against Drug Driving. They want to put a promotional campaign like that in, say, a health class. How that might work is if you're in teams, you might say, you don't have access to these platforms, and you do. Like, you can work on this part, and you can work on this part. And again, at the end of the day, AI is never going to replace what a student does produce. They're still going to have to take content, edit it, frame it, revise it. They may use the platform to revise it, but there has to be a revision process, just like you do a first draft, second draft, third draft before you're going to call it good on a written piece of work, generally speaking. And I think the other thing for parents to understand is that we are carefully looking at privacy policies. For example, we weren't worried about ChatGPT because when it first came out, it was only for adults. We're like, well, only adults can use it. I mean, we'll use it, but I guess the students can't. They made a change to their privacy policy in March, and we're like, oh, now we're going to have to take a serious look at this because our students, according to the company, could use it. There's some AI platforms that allow for only non-commercial use because they bring things in from commercial databases, and if they did that, then it would be a breach of those policies. So we're looking carefully at the policies, and I said earlier, and I think Emma mentioned it. The other thing is just try it, just play with it. If you hear about a site and you're not sure about it, try it out. I think you'll be surprised at what you find. And AI is again, it's just pulling from information that's been collected through the interwebs. It's grabbing information that you could find in a Google search, just packaging it differently.
I found so often my kids are so much more technologically savvy than I am. My son is kind of a genius in that area, that it actually helps me to have him walk me through these things too, because Discord servers for me were kind of scary in the beginning because I was like, I didn't understand, well, why can't you just talk through text? Why do you have to be on a Discord? Like, to me, that was like, why do you need to be on a Discord server? Why can't you just text? Well, and why can't you just meet in person? Like, that was, but after seeing how he used it, I'm fine with it. So,
and I think with that, with Jonathan's trying it, the thing that's going to come too is there's going to be best practices and things that are put in place for educators. So just like students could potentially use a Google Doc to chat back and forth, well, that's not best practice. And you talk to your student, you have a conversation, and there's classroom management elements that come into that. But there will be best practice for AI. For example, using, and again, we've used ChatGPT, even though there's a large number of AI tools, but using ChatGPT to write an entire essay is not best practice in any sense of the word. Using ChatGPT to brainstorm ideas to help you write an essay, or using ChatGPT to look at your essay after you've written it and find grammatical errors or some of those big idea things like, does this idea flow, kind of a thing.
Does it have a good topic sentence?
That kind of a thing. That's helping better you and working with AI in partnership. But at the center of AI is data, and helping to manage and access and control and interact with that data should always be a human who is using critical thinking skills and creativity and collaboration in that process.
And that's one of the things I'm real hopeful about AI is that it's another step. I mean, we've heard about how technology is going to help streamline things so that we don't have to worry about the busy work and that we can focus on those critical thinking skills, abstract problem solving, that sort of thing. And I think that is my vision for where I see AI helping both our educators, families. Like, we don't have to worry about when I was a graduate student, I was a TA for statistics, which many of my students call sadistics. And I had an old school professor my first semester, and he emphasized you got to bring in a note card and do the formula and be able to hand calculate things. And then he retired, and then the professor that was younger, probably a little older than I was, took his place. And she said, no, who cares? A computer does that now. Let the computer make the calculations. What I want students to understand is, what does that number mean? And that's, I think, the direction I think we can take it at AI, is that we're not having to do the actual machinations or the busy work part of things. It frees us to think about the creativity and collaboration, and what does that actually, what's the bigger context for these bigger ideas.
As a previous social studies educator, one of my favorite things is oftentimes you'd hear, well, history repeats itself. And I actually believe that history tends to rhyme. It's not exactly the same, but we see similar patterns. And I think with any technology integration, we've seen these similar patterns where when it first comes out, people are very scared of it because it's new and because it's different and because it changes life. And I think sometimes as humanity, we're resistant to change because it's new and different. Mm-hmm. But we've seen that, we've alluded to it, but with calculators, with the advent of the internet.
But the advent of the printing press,
yes.
The Industrial Revolution, you can go on and on, the Bronze Age, the technology advances of the Romans in warfare.
And so I think at this point, if you realize that we're sitting on the edge of something that has the capacity to change society, like some of those events, then realizing that this is a pattern that has occurred, there's rhyming that's happening, and that we're putting things in place to guide and structure that integration, then really it's just being willing to try it and sort of take a step forward into the innovation that's here and seeing how you can use your creativity and critical thinking to utilize that for you.
Mm-hmm. Well, the AI bell has been rung. It's not like we can put the genie back in the bottle. It really is being able to control the genie at this point, I suppose. What are some takeaways that you would, just wrapping this up, what is the most important thing for parents to know going forward as far as to what to watch with privacy, with AI in general?
Well, I think other than I've said it a couple times, try it out for yourself, just so you can get some experience, and so you can talk from a place of experience of trying it out yourself. I think other than that, I honestly, not to brag, but I think we did a pretty good job in our guidelines, and we did guidelines specifically for educators, specifically for students, and specifically for families. So I would encourage you to go to the Family Connections website that's under Canyon's district domain. You should be able to find it. And check out that guidebook. I think it'd give you some good ideas. It has some more definitions, and it'll give you some more food for thought. And so I think it will help parents understand, and others in the community understand, where we want to take this, what's our broad vision. And I think understanding that vision can help them help people understand what our next steps will be, because let's be honest, this is an ever-evolving field, and we're wanting a framework so that we can understand as things change, that we have an idea of what we want, how we want to incorporate that change in what we do.
I think I would echo part of that, and I'm going to add to it, but the first is that guidebook is available. If you go to the Canyon District website, click on the first tab that says for families, it will pull up a drop-down menu, and under the second column, it will say technology for families. If you click on that, there's some great resources for other things, including screen time and also AI. You can view the AI guidebook there. It is set up in sections for educators, for families, for students, and then for our leadership. But if you go to the families page, there are some great discussion questions there that are set up within that framework. There's also some additional resources We have linked out to those so you can access them as a parent, kind of use that as a foundation for where the information is coming from.
Videos on what AI is, how it works, that sort of thing.
There's also some really great student-friendly definitions, so it is very helpful. I would say adding to looking at the guidebook, knowing too that there is professional development and things that's coming for educators. There'll be a course that's starting in January. There's some collaboration opportunities that are coming in November for our educators to help prepare those educators to work with your students. But have a conversation with your child. As a previous middle school teacher, I always used to say, if you're hearing about it, your child has heard about it 2 weeks ago. So sit down, have those conversations with them. What is AI? Ask them what they know about it. Ask them, how are you seeing people use AI? Talk to them about appropriate uses that you feel like for your family, and see about how they can use it and thinking about possibilities of integrating into their future life. You know your child. My child right now loves to read. So at some point, I think that he probably would want to write stories, maybe, I don't know, but he could use AI to write the text and manage it, create graphics or things like that. Or if you have a child that's into coding, there's a lot of programs that allow you to write a code and test it out. Seeing what your child is interested in and how it can be meaningful to them. Because I think as a parent, if you can see those possibilities and if you're able to explore it and have those conversations, you can talk to them about appropriate uses and how to integrate. And I really believe that here at Canyons, we do a great job of not only providing balance for innovation, but also for helping your students be prepared and safe and just ready to move forward in a world that really is going to have AI integrated in a lot of different ways.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us at Connect Canyons. I've been your host, Stephanie Christensen, and if you have any ideas for future podcasts, please connect with us at communications@canyonsdistrict.org.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Connect Canyons. Connect with us on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram @Canyons District, or on our website, canyonsdistrict.org.